Well, let's talk about some football. It was the Premier League's worst attack facing one of the best defences in Europe. So it was never going to be a glut of goals in the fourth round tie. 1-0 the final score to Burnley. I'll be honest, I didn't go. You didn't really sell it to me last week. I thought, do you know what? I'm going to go to the pub and watch the rugby instead. But I guess out of the cup, at least we can concentrate on beating Derby's record now. It felt a bit, Steve, like the cup might have been a bit of something to look forward to, and maybe we could get a couple of wins under our belt, but we even managed to nose that up.
Yeah, I mean, it's frustrating. I mean, while Burnley made, I think, 8 changes,
Yep.
we still made a few ourselves, and probably a few more than most of us would have expected. So yeah, I mean, we didn't help ourselves. I mean, you go up against a championship defence, albeit one as sort of strong as Burnley's defence has been this season. Why on earth do you go in without a centre forward? I mean, this
They changed
concept of a
3 of the
strike.
back 4 as well, didn't they? I
Yeah,
think
the
one of them.
concept of playing a strikerless formation. I think the idea of that is sound when you're playing against a team where you're not expected to have the ball very much and you're expected to be on the back foot and defending a lot. Or if that defense is going to kind of squeeze the space. But they sat very deep. They didn't give us any space in behind. And they just frustrated us. But that was always going to be the case. I think if you'd said to us on like a week before, yeah, Burnley going to make loads of changes, but we're going to go in without a recognised centre forward, I'd be looking at you and thinking you're mental. Because what a championship level defence needs is for attackers to be occupying them, because then that's when there are spaces available for other players, and having effectively a number 10 playing up front basically means that all you're encouraging is that number 10 to drop deeper, and the centre halves have then got nothing to do. They're quite happy just to stand there. You're not working them. There's no real danger for them, and that was just really, really frustrating. Because other parts of the game, I mean, I kind of take issue with Juric saying after the game that he liked a lot of the performance, because actually a lot of the performance was just stodgy and it didn't really go anywhere. But there were moments and some individuals who performed well. I thought Suleiman was decent in patches. Fernandes tried to get things going, but the problem was where he was also playing in that midfield, it was getting a little bit crowded for him. Manning was decent first half. Wellington was excellent again. So I think we've got one there, I think, who's going to be of the required level. I mean, whether we're actually able to keep him in the summer based on the 2 performances we've seen from him so far is a question for the future. But we'll see how that goes. But yeah, he was promising. Slightly concerned that I don't know whether I mean, maybe Dibling's not fully fit. I mean, certainly not sharp. Obviously, haven't played for 3 or 4 weeks now. But have we possibly rushed him back a little bit? Because he just didn't look fully fit there. I think it was frustrating. He barely got a kick, did he? Really? Let's be honest. On the rare occasions he got on the ball, he was doubled up, which should have opened the space up for somebody else, but nobody quite seemed to have that sort of desire, if you like, to kind of stick their hand up and be the one to make it happen. We created a few sort of half decent chances. Unfortunately, most of them fell to the very left-footed Ryan Manning's right foot, which was unfortunate, and allowed the keeper to make a couple of saves that looked good, but probably didn't know an awful lot about. So that was frustrating that we've just not tested the keeper enough, and then left the door open at the other end, and they've. It's a scrappy goal, isn't it? But
it's not one that they would have conceded, though, is it? That's the
probably
problem.
Not. No, no. It's one that you do tend to concede when everybody's kind of lacking a little bit of confidence in the attacking side side of things. So yeah, very disappointed that with the way it ended, but I guess if you're looking for any slight crumbs of comfort to come out of it, no extra time, because that would have been absolutely dreadful if we'd have to sit through another half an hour of that. And I guess we get a week off at the start of March, which perhaps gives Juric a couple of weeks to kind of fully get at sort of a system that maybe allows us to be a little bit more creative going forwards. Because we have tightened up at the back a little bit, but it has been at the expense of kind of creating those big chances. Really, I mean, I think the combined XG for both teams was less than 2, so it wasn't. It just wasn't open enough, which I think we expected. But given you would like to think that with that added quality, I think if Amo-Ameyaw had started, I mean, the 10 minutes between him coming on and Burnley scoring was the best we looked all afternoon. And suddenly everybody kind of got up, and then you have that sort of kick in the teeth when they go up the other end and score with more or less their first chance in the second half, really.
Yeah.
So yeah, just very, very frustrating, and yeah, another one of those ones where you kind of think you've taken a big step forward, and now can you kick on? No, we can't.
No, and that is a positive that I hadn't thought about. We have now got a weekend in March where there's not going to be a game to ruin the weekend. So, good spot. Glen, Ivan Juric saying afterwards, I really saw a lot of players playing at a good level. Was he watching a different game to you, maybe?
Absolute bollocks. Next.
We've been there before, haven't we? It's sort of harking back to managers of old, talking about good games and
Nathan Jones. I was putting in mind of saying that we played well, and if you're stood there and you've got a turd in your hand and you try and tell everyone it's not a turd, everyone knows it's a turd, and and that's basically what his press conference just did my head in. You can't come out having. I mean, we talk about him being honest. He wasn't very honest there, was he? Or if he thinks that's an acceptable performance, then I'm sorry, off you go, mate. He's not the man, is he? No, that's not acceptable. That was absolutely dire. I thought the messing around with Wellington, putting him as a centre back, totally unnecessary. There was no need to do that. Ryan Manning could have done that, or he could have played one of the other defenders that he had. You know who. But I thought that was unnecessary. Playing without a striker, I got really annoyed about this when Russell Martin did it at the start of the season. We're not good enough to do that. We're not good enough to play sort of like through the lines. We had this weird tactical nonsense going on in the second half where Aribo would drop into the back three, Wellington would go left, Ugachukwu was in midfield on his own because no one had popped into midfield. I mean, we're playing a formation that only has 2 in the centre of midfield. So there's got to be 2 players there because Burnley had 3 in there. So if Leslie Ugachukwu was marked, we end up playing Russell Martin ball along the back 4, 5, 6, however many's there. And we didn't go anywhere. It was just awful. I mean, when we bought Amo-Ameyaw on, as Steve said, there was kind of 5 or 6 minutes where we looked like we were going to change, but then we stopped going to him. But the most pathetic part of the game was after they'd scored. I think we had, with the extra time, 17 minutes where we put a grand total of 2 balls into the box. 1 went straight to the goalkeeper and 1 went out for a goal kick. So what are you doing? 17 minutes to try and rescue a game, and then to come out and say that he thought that was acceptable. I'm just sorry, I'm not having that at all. That's the kind of thing that just winds fans up, and it just winds people up. Do you think? I mean, I don't know if new director of football chap was watching that. I wonder what he made of it. I just thought it was terrible, and it was, we've got this prospect of Ivan Juric being our manager next season. We've got to go into the Championship and win 20 odd games or whatever against teams that are going to play a low block, a lot of them. And if you're going to go about it that cluelessly, then that is severely worrying for me.
There are, I guess, technically just 2 places or so between the teams. So this was going to be a good test, Alfie, and maybe show us what we need to do, perhaps a sign of what's to come. And I kind of came away from seeing the highlights yesterday thinking this is probably a bit worse than we thought, because it should have been a nice, easy afternoon.
Yeah, I mean, Burnley made 8 changes, so it's not even a case of it's 20th in the Premier League versus second in the Championship. It's the Burnley team this time wouldn't necessarily be up there. I mean, obviously there is the factor of they're coming into that game despite all the changes with a lot of confidence. I mean, as Steve said, I mean, quite literally on record, one of the best defenses in Europe this season, which is mad. And they continue that while Saints are in the doldrums. They're low on confidence. But that still doesn't excuse it. And Saints should have gone ahead. They had the better of the chances in the first half, and obviously you forget about that because it was so dire when they were chasing the game. Last shot on target in the 47th minute, when you're 1-0 down at home to a Championship team is not great. But there was a couple moments in the first half. I mean, you mentioned Ryan Manning; he should have scored one of them. Tyler Dibling set him up for one of them. I think a bit of space in the box. There's a moment where Camaldine had a good drive, and he had Tyler Dibling in so much space to his right, and he just opted to shoot. And it's just that poor decision making. Maybe sort of taking for granted that you're going to get another couple of chances rather than laying it off to the teammate who's definitely going to score from there. Really poor game. I think Steve and Glen have both covered everything that there is to say about the game, really. I don't think there's too much more I can add. There wasn't anything particularly revelationary in the press conference other than the Flynn Down stuff either. So just a real dull day, and a game we knew was going to be bad, but just so much worse than we could have thought. But I do think that at least it's the FA Cup, and they've got a chance next weekend maybe to turn it around.
I do wonder. I assume kind of everybody stopped asking questions about Bella Kotchap now.
Well, I asked a question about him on Friday, and he said, he's one of the team. He's training well. He's playing well. If I think he can play, he'll play. But he said last week, that he sees him as a right centre back, not on the left. So that is, honestly, based on the fact that he's still not played, that might well be the reason.
I did a quick little bit of looking on his transfer marked profile this morning, and looked at his number of Premier League appearances is 24. So I wonder whether there is a significant fee due to Bottom
25th appearance
when he makes 25th appearance.
Maybe.
So, but I imagine that it's possibly that there's
are we that skin?
Yeah, but contractually, they have to, if he's fit and available, then he has to be kind of under consideration for the first team squad. You can't just completely freeze the guy out. You've got to be kind of looking to integrate him, even if the manager doesn't believe he's good enough or playing well enough in training or whatever to justify a place in the starting 11. He's got to be sort of considered for a place on the bench. And maybe there's kind of that sort of just covering bases on a contractual basis, which is why he's still on the subs bench, even though we don't have any other centre backs at the moment.
Does he get up and warm up? I can't honestly remember. Does he? He
certainly does the warm ups at half time and stuff.
He warms up constantly. George from Daily Echo said to me, funny, but he reckons that he's the player in Premier League history who is the highest warm up minutes to game minutes ratio. He is constantly on the touchline. He's never on the pitch.
You might have stumbled across something there, Steve. So we would need Bree and Bednarek both to be out, and then we would maybe put your theory to the test.
Maybe we'll see
and see.
No, it costs a fortune.
It would, yeah. Is there anything else on the game before we do Player of the Week? Just put it to bed, right? Move on.
Yeah. Only 17,000 empty seats again. Slow hand clap to the club for.
We called that last week before, didn't we?
Stupid pricing model. Yeah.
Get the pricing right.
I mean,
get people in.
Yeah. 17,000 empty seats. Well played.
Yeah.
Yeah, it does feel like a sort of free PR hit, doesn't it? That's just not been taken. Just cheap tickets. Everyone's happy.
Mind you, you say it as if you're going to get youngsters along to watch that game. It was interesting because where I was sat behind the chapel goal, there was a what looked like a lads football team sat in the seats sort of like around me. There's about 15 of them, probably about 10 years old. And for the first sort of like half an hour, they were kind of interested in the game and watching what was going on. For the second half, they couldn't have cared less about the game because it was terrible, and they weren't.
That sounds like
engaged
free
with the game
tickets
at
to
all.
me. That's free tickets
and
to a club, isn't it, or a school, or
you see youngsters leaving the game. I saw one lad. He's probably about 17. He looked like really upset because we've been knocked out the FA Cup, and I'm thinking, get used to it, kid. But I think if more people had turned up to that game, if you'd got a load of first timers in, they wouldn't be coming back.
Yeah,
long term.
I'll tell you what I did notice in the last sort of few minutes. I mean, not noticed it as if it was subtle. Everyone noticed it, but the fact that Bednarek was really the only player sort of commanding everybody forward in that added time, and yet the ball just kept on coming back to him, and sort of St Mary's got louder and louder, and the whistles and the jeers, get it forward, and it kept coming back, and that is a team just bereft of confidence, isn't it? For me, they don't see an option other than to play it safely. Which worries me.
But why don't we change things? Why not put two up front for the last 5 minutes? You're going out. You're going out of the FA Cup. This is the end.
They did have Paul and Cameron up front for the last 10 minutes. To be fair, I think, didn't they?
Yeah, but Cameron was playing on the left.
Played kind of holding midfield for most of it. It was bizarre.
He was out on the left along with 6 other players. It was just bizarre. You had Aribo over there. You had Wellington over there. Manning over there. It's just nonsense, basically.
Well, Joe Aribo won Player of the Week last week, which no surprise actually. Might be a bit tougher to pick somebody this week. Couple of Wellington maybe. I don't know. Do you want to suggest anybody, Steve?
No, not really.
Not gonna be another week where we just like bin it off and go, actually, no, they're all.
I mean, as I say, Wellington was fine. Suleiman was fine for the most part.
I mean, Wellington in the first minute of the game clearing off the line was probably the only really good thing that happened, to be honest.
Also his sliding tackle in the centre circle where he cleaned out 2 players, I think, injured himself in the process, which I think launched the counter attack, which is the one that where Dibbling had a shot that was blocked. No, sorry, the one he put into the side netting. That was kind of one thing for people to get excited about. But it was pretty grim fare for all concerned, really.
So if we had to come up with a couple of names, if we go with Wellington, maybe we'll go with that's about it, really.
Sulemana, maybe.
And any others to add to the list? No,
not from me.
Pick somebody who wasn't playing. Adam Armstrong, Player of the Week.
Yeah, to be fair. Yeah, definitely.
Bella Kotchap for the warm-ups.